Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. The buzzer went off 2 weeks after my mother died. I am Emily, 22, and I honestly froze. I watched the intercom light blink like it was a fire alarm. For a second, I thought about letting it ring until it stopped. I picked up the receiver and heard my father breathing. "Open up, Em." His voice came out way too bright. "I have someone with me. You're going to like her." My grip tightened so much the plastic creaked. I did not answer right away, which he noticed. "Come on, I am not going anywhere." My stomach flipped because that line sounded rehearsed. I pressed the door button and hated myself before it even buzzed. I knew I was inviting something in that would not leave. I checked the peephole and saw him on the stairs. He was not alone, which hit me like a thrown rock. A woman stood one step below him with her hand on the rail. She leaned into him and adjusted her hair like this was a date. This is the part where I wish I could say I slammed the door. Instead, I opened it wide and forced a stiff smile. "Hey," I managed because anything longer would have cracked. My voice came out thin and small and already defensive. My father moved first and filled the doorway like it was his right. He held a bouquet that still dripped from the wrapping. The woman hovered behind him with a careful little smile. He stepped aside so I could see her clearly and my chest tightened. "Emily, this is Lena." His voice dropped into a gentle tone. "She has been helping me." She lifted her hand for a shake and I just stared. Eventually I gave her my fingers because leaving her hanging felt worse. Up close I could see she was younger than him, not by a decade or something wild but enough to sting. Her nails were perfect, which told me she knew about this visit. Her eyes kept flicking to him like she was checking for approval. "Thank you for letting us stop by." Her voice said she really wanted to meet me. She spoke like we had set this up together weeks ago. My laugh slipped out sharp and ugly before I caught it. I saw her blink and retreat half a step toward him. I stepped back from the doorway and they came inside. He brushed by me without looking like he might spook me. She followed a few steps behind, clutching her purse to her chest. I remember thinking she walked like someone entering a job interview. Back then I tried to tell myself she was a grief counselor, maybe some support group friend who just got too enthusiastic. Now I know that was my brain throwing sand on a fire. I already felt the heat and still pretended nothing burned. My father put the bouquet on the counter and clapped his hands once. "Look at this place, you are really keeping it together." His eyes did not land on me for more than a second. They bounced between Lena and the walls like he needed a script. "So how are you holding up?" Lena asked and stepped closer. I hated the question and the soft tilt of her head. "I am fine," I replied because anything else would split me open. The lie tasted bitter and heavy, yet I swallowed it anyway. For a moment we just stood there in a lopsided triangle. My father rubbed his palms on his jeans and cleared his throat. "I wanted you two to meet," he called her amazing. The word hung between us like a test I had not studied for. He reached for her hand and their fingers threaded together easily. It was not awkward or new, just casual muscle memory that punched my gut. She relaxed against his side as if she belonged there. I realized then I was the extra person in my own home. If you were here, you might say I overreacted. You might say maybe they just clicked fast after the funeral. I told myself that exact story while watching their joined hands. Now I can see how hard I worked to protect him instead of myself. "Mom would want me to have support, you know that." He finally looked straight at me and did not blink. There was no wedding ring on his finger anymore, only a pale band. That empty circle felt louder than anything he had said yet. "Support looks different than this," I answered, and my voice shook. His jaw twitched and Lena's hand tightened around his. For a second I thought he would back away and apologize. Instead he took one step deeper into the room like he owned the ground. That was the moment a quiet line snapped inside me. I did not yell, which still surprises me when I think back. I just moved aside and let them settle into my evening. I did not know it yet, but this was the start of losing him on purpose. He opened my fridge like he still paid my rent. Bottles clinked while Lena hovered near the doorway watching him. I stayed by the counter with my arms folded tight. It felt like I had walked into their place instead of mine. "Here we go." He pulled out a box without even looking. He tossed it on the counter with a little flourish. "They always disappear around you." His tone tried to sound playful. Lena laughed softly and slid the box toward me like this was normal. It was my comfort snack from exam weeks, the one I used to hide. I had not bought that brand since the hospital days. "Wow," I tapped the lid just to stall. "How did you know about these?" My eyes went straight to her. She flicked a glance at him before answering, which hit me hard. "Oh, I just remembered from the way he talks about you." Her smile tightened. "He always mentions how you stress eat these when life gets heavy." Her focus landed back on him like she had passed a test. My father chuckled and bumped her shoulder with his. What can I say? I brag about my kid all the time. My jaw clenched at the word brag because he never used it before. He leaned on the counter between us like some cheerful referee. That is a very specific brag. I pushed the box away untouched. You tell everyone about my weird eating habits. My voice rose. He shrugged and reached for a drink like this was no big thing. She helped me through some rough nights. I talked a lot. Those rough nights had a clock in my head already. Every one of them belonged to my mother fighting to breathe. The idea of him chatting with another woman during those hours hurt. I stared at the floor so I would not cry in front of them. Lena moved closer and rested her fingers on his shoulder. I was just there to listen. Nobody should grieve alone. The word grieve slammed into me like it did not fit the timeline. She framed herself as part of the aftermath, not the overlap. You make it sound like it has been months. I kept my tone flat. My father stiffened for a second, then forced a bright laugh. Loss does not follow a schedule, honey. It started when she got worse. He avoided my eyes and reached for Lena's hand again like a reflex. So you two met where? I pulled a chair out and stayed standing. That question came out sharper than I planned, and I did not fix it. He and Lena exchanged one of those quick flashes of panic. Group meeting, he answered fast, kind of a support thing. Lena nodded too quickly, which made it worse. It was one of those family sessions everyone just kind of shared. She watched me as if she could steer this with eye contact. It helped him breathe a little. He was carrying so much. There was no family group meeting, not once, nothing even close. I knew every appointment because I drove to all of them. My tongue pressed against my teeth so hard it hurt. I let the silence stretch because I wanted them to feel it. You never told me about any group. My fingers tapped the table edge. It all happened pretty fast. You had your hands full with classes. His excuse landed between us like a cheap prop. Back then I swallowed it because the alternative felt worse. Lena rushed to fill the gap he left. We thought about inviting you, but it was already a lot. She reached for the snack box and opened it like a peace offering. Here, you should eat something. You look like you have not rested. She did not know my sleeping pattern, yet she sounded certain. It grated on me in a way I could not shake off. You seem to know plenty about me already. I pushed the box back. Her face flickered, then smoothed into that careful social expression again. My father straightened and tried a different tactic. Hey, why do we not sit down and talk like adults? His voice carried that fake lightness he used on telemarketers. We can all share a little, figure out how to move forward. Move forward from what exactly? Because the funeral flowers were barely gone. I dragged a chair out so hard it scraped across the floor. Lena flinched and folded her hands in her lap quickly. I watched every twitch because I needed something solid to hold on to. So when was this first meeting? I kept my gaze on her, not him. She inhaled like she had rehearsed this alone in front of a mirror. About a month before she passed, I think. Time blurred for everyone. The word month burned through me because my mother was still fighting then. I remembered those weeks as a loop of hospital corridors and alarms. There was no space for mystery gatherings unless he walked out on us. Funny, my laugh came out thin and mean. I do not recall anyone mentioning a family circle full of strangers. My father shifted in his chair and rubbed his forehead. It was just one evening. I did not want to bother you. He dug his nails into the table edge while he talked. I almost left halfway through until she started sharing her story. Lena placed her palm over his arm like she owned that moment. It was not about me, she murmured. I just understood the fear. She looked at him with this soft focus that made my skin crawl. They had a whole history in that look, and I was shut out. I asked the next question before I could talk myself down. And you two kept talking after that one miracle evening. He nodded slowly as if that proved something noble. She checked in, kept me from doing anything stupid when things spiraled. Checked in how? Through middle E of the night calls while my mother groaned. My mind supplied images I still hate, him stepping outside with his phone. It felt like betrayal even before I had any facts. I realized I was gripping the back of the chair hard enough to ache. You could have called me when things spiraled. My voice shook now. He stared at my hands instead of my eyes. You had enough on your plate. I did not want to crush you too. Lena nodded along like they had gone over this line many times. In that second, I saw the shape of their bond more clearly. They had stories about my worst days that did not include me. Every gentle gesture between them carried weight I could not see yet. I knew I would start digging, even if it tore everything open. I grabbed his phone while he dragged a box to the car. It lay on the table, screen still lit from a recent check. My thumb hovered above the lock like it weighed 100 pounds. I told myself I was only looking for emergency contacts, not ammunition. The screen did not ask for a code, which shocked me. He had disabled every barrier as if privacy no longer mattered. Messages were right there, stacked in a long, steady chain. My chest thudded while I opened the top thread. Her name sat at the top of the list in neat letters. Not a nickname, not a vague initial, her full first name. I scrolled, expecting short check-ins and practical updates. Instead, I found paragraphs, inside jokes, and heart emojis he never used with me. The dates climbed backward as my finger moved up. Last night, the week before, the funeral day. Then farther, past the week she went into the hospital for the last time. Back into weeks when we still believed treatment might work. I felt my stomach twist when I saw a message from that period. She had written that she missed his laugh and his arms. He replied that he wished he were in her bed instead of his own. I nearly dropped the phone right there on the floor. My father's voice floated in from the hallway, calling for packing tape. I shoved the phone back where I found it, screen down. My fingers left a smear on the glass from sweat. I answered him with a quick yes and hoped my face did not show anything. He came back in with his arms full and barely glanced at me. "Can you grab the envelope from my desk?" he asked while nudging the door. "Title papers should be on the keyboard." My heart leapt at the word keyboard because that meant computer. I walked down the short hall faster than normal and forced myself to slow. The laptop sat open, mail window filling the screen. A new message notification glowed in the corner like a dare. I told myself I would only move the mouse enough to see who it was. The subject line mentioned a reservation extension and his last name. Below it, older lines showed the same hotel chain repeating. My throat went dry as I saw familiar city names from my state. None of them matched the hospital town we had practically lived in. "Find it yet?" His shout bounced down the hallway, closer now. I snatched the envelope, left the laptop exactly how it was. "Got it," I answered and forced my voice to stay level. I walked back out while every nerve screamed to turn around. He took the envelope and launched into a story about selling the truck. Lena laughed at his joke like she had heard it 10 times already. I studied her face, searching for some trace of guilt. All I saw was comfort, which somehow made me feel worse. While we packed, his phone buzzed on the table again. He ignored it at first, busy wrestling a heavy box. Another buzz followed, then a third in quick bursts. He swore under his breath and reached for it. The name that flashed across the screen was not hers. It was a different woman's name, short and unfamiliar. He angled the screen away when he saw me glance over. "Wrong number," he muttered as he stuffed it into his pocket. Lena's eyes narrowed for a split second before she smoothed her expression. "Everything okay?" She bent to adjust the box he struggled with. "Yeah, just spam, you know how it is." His laugh came out tight. No one believed it, and we all pretended to anyway. Later that afternoon, he stepped outside to take a call. The muffled voice on the other end sounded like hers through the glass. He paced in short, frustrated lines near the driveway. "Not now," I heard him hiss. "She is here, I will call later." I slipped back into the office and woke the laptop again. This time I did not pretend I was doing anything noble. I opened the reservation email and checked the timeline. The original confirmation date stared back from months before the funeral. The stay covered a weekend I knew by heart for another reason. That was when he told me work forced him out of town overnight. I had sat beside my mother while she winced through another treatment. We watched a game show and joked about his terrible taste in hotels. In the email, he thanked the hotel staff for their discretion. He mentioned an anniversary and used words that made my skin crawl. No one celebrates an anniversary with a counselor from a single meeting. No one writes that kind of message after just one random support session. My hands shook as I opened older messages in the thread. There were attachments I did not open because I could not handle more. Instead, I focused on dates, cities, and how often they appeared. These trips formed a pattern, steady and deliberate, not accidental. A shadow darkened the doorway and I snapped the laptop shut. Everything still where I left it. His tone tried to sound casual. Yeah, I answered, gripping the edge of the desk. He leaned against the frame and watched me far too closely. You do not need to worry about every bill and every detail. He folded his arms, blocking half the room with his stance. I have it handled now, I'm not falling apart anymore. That line hit me harder now that I knew who helped him stay upright. I wanted to confront him right then and there. I wanted to shove the laptop at him and demand explanations. Instead, I swallowed every word and let them burn my throat. You cannot unhear certain lies once they are spoken out loud. So I nodded and pretended to accept his performance. I carried another box to the doorway and brushed past him. Lena called from the other room asking if we needed help. I answered that we were fine while I tried to hold my expression steady. Looking back, this is where I stopped giving him the benefit of the doubt. I shifted from confused daughter to unwilling investigator in my own life. I started watching for slips that would line up with the evidence. Because once you see your parents' secrets in print, you cannot unsee the timestamp. He dropped a real estate flyer on my table like a bomb. We need to put the house on the market, he announced. Lena stood behind him, twisting her ring with her thumb. I stared at the bold letters and felt my pulse spike. You want to sell already? My voice came out rough. He pulled out a chair and sat without asking if I minded. Mortgage, medical stuff, everything is piling up, he answered. Unless you have 30 grand somewhere, we are out of options. I knew he was lying about having no safety net. Not lying about the bills, those were very real. Lying about the timing, about how fast he jumped to this plan. The flyers were too polished for a sudden brainstorm. Lena slid into the seat next to him like she belonged there. New spaces can really help people heal, she added softly. Too many memories can keep you stuck in the worst days. Her hand landed on his arm and stayed there. I imagined my mother's closet being emptied by this stranger. Her things tossed into donation bags while Lena gave opinions. You are talking like the house is a curse, I replied. To me it is still the last place she lived. He exhaled hard and rubbed his forehead with his fingers. I cannot keep up with everything on one paycheck anymore. His gaze flicked toward Lena for half a second. I am trying to avoid actual disaster here, not hurt you. Show me the numbers then, I pushed the flyer back toward him. If it is that bad, I want to see exactly where. He shifted in his seat and looked anywhere but at me. I do not have everything printed yet, I met with a guy. There it was again, always some unnamed guy with advice. Is this guy a financial planner or your new realtor friend? My question landed sharper than I meant, but I did not pull back. Lena straightened and folded her hands in her lap. He recommended a broker who already has buyers lined up. He said it quickly, like reading off a note card. If we move fast, we can clear the debt and breathe again. His leg bounced under the table in short, tense bursts. She just died, I reminded him, each word slow and tight. He flinched like I slapped him, then his face hardened. Exactly, and now the bills do not pause out of respect. He tapped the flyer, pushing it closer to my side. That was the moment my phone started buzzing on the counter. I broke eye contact and checked the screen out of habit. Unknown number, local area code, voicemail already forming behind the call. Something in my gut told me to answer anyway. Is this Emily? The voice sounded professional and direct. Yes, who is this? I walked a few steps away from the table. This is Morgan from the law office that handled your mother's documents. I felt Lena's gaze on my back as soon as she heard that. Is something wrong with the estate? The word felt strange in my mouth. No, nothing wrong, the caller replied, calm and careful. There is a small policy and some paperwork in your name only. My father's head snapped up like someone had yanked a rope. I walked toward the hallway while keeping my eyes on him. In my name only, I repeated it so he would hear. That is right, the caller confirmed. She updated it close to the ND. My hand tightened around the phone until my knuckles ached. Can you come by this week and sign a few forms? The voice stayed neutral, no hint of drama. It is not a large amount, but it is yours outright. I caught the faint mention of numbers and swallowed hard. We arranged a time and I hung up with my heart racing. When I turned back, both of them were watching me closely. Everything okay? Lena tilted her head, voice too gentle. Law office, I answered, they have something for me. My father's jaw tightened for a second before he forced a smile. Probably just leftover hospital paperwork, he tried. No, I replied. She said policy and beneficiary and my name. The room went very still after that line. Your mother trusted you with most errands, he said after a beat. It would make sense for you to handle the last details too. His voice sounded lighter than his eyes, which gave him away. He wanted that money counted in his rescue plan. I pretended not to notice and walked to the sink. Once I know the amount, we can talk about bills. I kept my back to them so he could not read my face. Behind me, I heard Lena shift in her chair. Some things are probably meant for her future, not ours. Lena kept her tone mild, but the message was clear. Parents do that sometimes, they set aside little cushions for kids. The word ours scratched at me in the worst way. He stood up so fast the chair legs scraped the floor. Nobody is trying to take anything from you, he insisted. This is about not drowning in debt she did not ask for. His hand sliced through the air, restless and angry. I turned around and met his eyes straight on. Then you will not mind waiting to see what it is. I held his stare long enough to make him look away. For the first time, I felt him lose ground. 2 days later, I walked into the law office alone. The receptionist recognized the name and led me to a small room. The attorney laid out a folder and a neat stack of pages. Your mother updated these 3 weeks before she passed, they explained. Hearing that timing made my chest tighten in a new way. 3 weeks before the end, she made changes he did not mention. She moved this policy from joint to you alone, the attorney continued. She also wrote a note requesting you handle any distributions personally. They slid the note across the desk like it weighed nothing. It was short, just a few lines in her shaky handwriting. I read the part where she asked them to keep this strictly private. My vision blurred and I had to blink hard to focus. Do you know why she wanted it separated from the house? They asked. I shook my head because saying it out loud made it more real. Inside, though, something clicked into place with his hotel reservations. She either suspected or knew exactly what he was doing. The amount was not gigantic, but it was not small either. Enough to cover my tuition gap, enough to put a dent in his debt. Enough to make his sudden rush to sell the house look suspicious. I signed the papers with a hand that did not feel like mine. When I left, the attorney reminded me the funds belonged only to me. Nobody else can access this account without your explicit permission. They emphasized the words as if they had seen too many fights. I nodded and thanked them and tried to keep my expression neutral. My father called before I even got back to my car. How did it go? He asked, voice bright and forced. Fine, I answered, leaning against the door to steady myself. They confirmed it is in my name and it stays that way. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. That is good news for both of us, you know that. We are still a family, we solve problems together, he added quickly. The word together sounded like a hook he was throwing out. We can talk about everything when I see the paperwork. I kept my tone flat enough to sand the edges. I will bring copies when I am ready, not before. There was a pause long enough to expose his frustration. When I hung up, I understood two things at once. He wanted the house gone because it tied him to her history. He wanted my mother's last small gift folded into his new life. I realized I might be the only person who could stop that. I invited them over with one stupid text. Come by Friday, I will cook, we can talk. My finger hovered above send longer than I want to admit. When I finally pressed it, it felt like pulling a pin. He answered almost immediately with a thumbs up. Lena followed with a separate message about bringing dessert. They sounded excited, like this was some cozy family night. I stared at the screen and planned a quiet war. The day of the dinner, I printed everything. Emails, hotel confirmations, phone screenshots with dates circled in red pen. I slid the pages into a plain folder and set it on a chair. Just within reach, not on the table yet. I cooked because I needed something to do with my NDS. Every slice and stir took the edge off for a second. Still, my brain kept jumping to those reservation dates. I promised myself I would not back down this time. The doorbell rang while I was still arranging plates. My stomach lurched, but my feet moved on their own. He walked in carrying a bottle and talking too loudly. Lena trailed behind him, carefully cheerful, eyes scanning my place. This smells amazing, she inhaled dramatically and touched my arm. He pecked my cheek like we were fine again. I stepped aside and watched them slip off their coats. They looked practiced, like a couple who lived in the same mirror. We settled at the table after a few empty compliments. He launched into updates about house showings and loan options. It will be a fresh chapter once we close, he announced. Lena nodded along, spearing food without really tasting it. I let them talk for a while and just listened. Honestly, I wanted to hear how far the script went. When there was a pause, I refilled his glass slowly. So how are those rewards points treating you? I asked lightly. He frowned, more confused than worried at first. What points? He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. Hotel loyalty, all those stays really add up, I smiled. Lena's fork stopped halfway to her mouth and stayed there. I travel for work, you know that, he answered quickly. Not really to that chain in that many cities, I shrugged. I pulled a folded sheet from my pocket and spread it. His name sat on the page over a neat reservation grid. Babe, you never told me you had that many nights. Lena tried to turn it into a joke, but her voice wobbled. She traced one of the dates with her fingertip. This one is the weekend you came back exhausted. That was a job training, I already told you. He stabbed at his food like it had personally offended him. I tapped the paper near the note about an anniversary package. This training came with champagne and breakfast for two apparently. The room went quiet enough to hear the clock in the hall. He stared at the paper like it might change language. Sometimes I upgrade if it costs almost the same, he muttered. I watched Lena's face shift through confusion into something darker. I did not push all at once, I layered it. From the folder on the chair, I pulled more printouts. Emails where he called Lena his anchor and thanked her for weekends. Messages where they planned getaways on days he claimed to be swamped. Lena blinked hard when she saw her own words on the pages. I did not write this to be passed around, she whispered. No, you wrote it while my mother was still alive. My voice shook, but I did not lower it. He slammed his palm on the table and cut me off. Enough, this is between adults, you are digging in private. Adults do not sneak around while their wife fights for breath. The sentence came out louder than I meant, but I let it stand. He pushed his chair back and paced behind it in short lines. You went through my accounts, my phone, my email, he growled. Yes, I answered, and this part I do not regret. Because nothing you told me matched the calendar. Lena looked between us like watching a tennis match gone wrong. I thought you were separated emotionally when we met, she said. Her hands trembled around her fork, finally set down untouched. You told me it was already over in everything but paperwork. He did not answer her, he locked onto me instead. What do you want from me? An execution, a confession, both. I slid one last sheet across the table toward him. Honestly, I want the truth about this night. He glanced down and all the color drained from his face. It was the reservation covering the exact date I remembered. The night nurses called 3 times before reaching me. The night the hospital staff asked where my father was. You were unreachable for hours, I reminded him slowly. Your phone went straight to voicemail from 9 until 1. I tapped the time stamp on the confirmation with my knuckle. Check in at 8:30, check out the next morning. I was too wrecked to drive that night, I told you. He gripped the back of his chair until his knuckles stood out. I pulled off the road and found the first place available. His story crumbled even while he tried to rebuild it. The confirmation was made 3 days earlier, I pointed out. I pushed the page closer so he could not dodge the printing. You did not pull off the road, you packed a bag. My voice broke on that last word, which somehow hurt more. Lena let out a small noise, not quite a sob, not quite a gasp. Her eyes flooded as she studied the columns and notes. This was before she passed, she whispered toward him. I asked you if you were still living at home then. You knew I was hurting, he turned on her with a sharp twist. Everything was chaos, I told you I was barely functioning. Her expression hardened in a way I had no seen before. Hurting does not erase a wedding band, she shot back quietly. They started arguing right there, voices overlapping and jagged. I sat and watched, hands flat on the table, breathing hard. Every sentence from him added a layer of selfishness to the picture. Every reply from her chipped away at whatever image she had built. He tried one last pivot back to me like I was the problem. I needed comfort, I was going crazy watching her fade. He raked both hands through his hair, nearly frantic now. People make mistakes under pressure, you have no idea. I leaned forward until my elbows touched the printed pages. She called your name that night when she came in and out. His eyes snapped to mine, wide and suddenly young. The nurse asked if I wanted them to keep trying. I did not give the whole scene, just the sharp edges. You were not in traffic, you were not in a parking lot. You were in a hotel room telling another woman you loved her. My throat burned, but the words landed exactly where they needed. Lena pushed her chair back and stood without touching him. I thought you were broken, not double-timing a dying woman. Her voice sounded flat now, beyond crying, beyond shock. I am going to get some air, she muttered, heading for the door. He reached out for her, but she shrugged him off hard. The front door closed behind her with a final, heavy sound. He turned back to me, eyes filled with something ugly. You did this, he accused, as if I wrote those messages. I let him stare, and I did not apologize. I looked at the mess spread across my table, then at him. For once, this is not on her or on me, I said. You built this whole thing, I just turned on the lights. He kicked the chair out of his way and leaned over the table. You blew up my life for some screenshots, spit caught at the edge of his mouth. I stayed seated, palms flat, so I would not shove him back. Underneath all that rage, I heard one clear thing: he was scared. Your life was already wrecked, I answered, keeping my tone low. You just wanted everyone else to live inside your lie. He laughed once, harsh and quick like a bark. I finally find something good and my own kid destroys it. There it was, out loud, his priority lined up in one sentence. Not my mother, not me, not the years we crawled through together. His new relationship, his comfort, his chance to feel young and wanted. It landed on my chest like a weight I refused to carry. Get out, I stood so fast my chair scraped across the floor. He blinked, actually surprised, like that word belonged only to him. This is my place, my dinner, my proof, I continued. You are not going to scream at me in my own home. I am the only parent you have left, he jabbed a finger at his chest. The phrase hit a raw nerve, exactly where he aimed it. For a second I almost folded, from habit, not from respect. Then I pictured my mother's shaking handwriting on that note. I walked to the front door and unlatched it without looking back. You can be the only one left and still not be safe. My hand stayed on the knob while my heart pounded against my ribs. You can go, or I can call someone who makes you go. He stared at the open doorway like it offended him personally. You would call the cops on your own father over one mistake. Stop calling it one, I snapped, the word slipping out sharp. You chose her in that room and those nights over us. He moved toward me then, not quite threatening but too close. For a heartbeat I wondered if he would grab my arm. Instead he reached past me for the folder on the side table. His fingers brushed the edge before I snatched it away. Do not touch her note, I warned, voice dropping to a whisper. He froze, eyes darting to the corner where I kept that envelope. You think waving that paper around makes you righteous. It proves she did not trust you at the end, I answered. That line hit harder than any accusation about hotels or texts. He flinched as if someone else had said it, not his own kid. She was confused, he argued, clinging to the weakest defense. No, I told him, she was tired of waiting for you to grow up. For a second I hated myself for how much that hurt him. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again without sound. I watched my words land on him like I had shoved him backward. There is nothing fun about watching a parent crack in front of you. He drew himself up again, anger sliding back over his hurt. Fine, keep the house stuck, keep the money locked away. Do not come crying to me when bills hit you too. He stepped into the hallway and yanked his jacket from the hook. Do not worry, I replied, I will figure it out without you. I knew my voice shook, but I did not soften anything. He paused on the threshold, waiting for me to backpedal like always. I kept staring until he finally crossed the line and left. The door latch clicked in the sile. NCE after felt brutal. I stood there with my hand still on the knob, breathing hard. For a few seconds I almost ran after him out of pure reflex. Instead I turned the deadbolt and slid the chain across. My phone started buzzing almost immediately on the table. First his number, then another call from the same contact. I let it ring until voicemail picked up both times. Only when the alert stopped flashing did I pick it up. Text after text stacked on the screen in rapid bursts. You went too far. You embarrassed me in front of her. Your mother would hate what you are doing. Every line tried to hit a different bruise. I typed once, erased it, then tried again. Finally, I sent the shortest thing I could live with. Stop using her to excuse what you did. Do not come here again. I saw the little typing dots appear, then vanish, then return. You will regret this when you calm down. That was his last message before the dots disappeared for good. I stared at the thread until my vision blurred with exhaustion. Then I opened the settings and blocked his number. I wish I could pretend I felt powerful right then. Truth is, my legs gave out and I sat on the floor. That was the moment it hit me that I had done it. I had cut off my last living parent while his plate was still dirty on my table. That night I did not sleep more than a few scattered minutes. Every time I drifted off, I jerked awake to phantom buzzing. In one dream, he was at the door begging, in another, he was raging. Both versions knew exactly which guilt buttons to mash. By morning, my stomach hurt from clenching it for hours. I made coffee I barely drank and checked my phone again. No new calls, no new texts, just the blocked thread sitting there. The quiet felt wrong, like the house was holding its breath with me. Around 9, an unfamiliar number popped up on the screen. I almost ignored it, then saw the area code from my hometown. Hello, my voice sounded raw to my own ears. Hi, this is Jard with Apex Realty, is this Emily? My teeth sank into my lip hard enough to sting. Yes, I walked to the table where the folder still lay scattered. I had your father in my office yesterday, the realtor continued. He mentioned you were ready to sign the agreement on the house. It took a second for the words to register fully. He told you I agreed, I asked it slow like testing ice. That is what he indicated, the man replied, a little wary now. I wanted to make sure I had everyone on the same page. You do not, I answered, steadier than I felt. I am not signing anything, the property cannot be sold without me. I opened the folder and slid my fingers over the legal letter. If he pressures you, you can tell him I said no. The realtor cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. I will make a note that consent is not in place. I am sorry for the mix-up, sounds like a tough time. He ended the call quickly, probably relieved to escape the drama. Hanging up, I realized how close he had come to bulldozing me. If I had stayed in shock a little longer, he might have. That thought lit up a different kind of anger inside me. Not the hot kind from last night, but cold, practical fury. I called the attorney next, my hand only shaking a little. I want to know what he can do without my signature. They walked me through the basics in calm, careful sentences. As long as my name stayed on the deed, he needed me for every step. Do you want us to send him formal notice of that? The question hung there while I weighed the fallout. Part of me wanted to avoid more explosions for a while. The rest of me was so tired of being polite while he schemed. Yes, I answered finally, feeling my shoulders drop a fraction. Put in writing that he cannot sell or borrow against it. There was a pause as they typed something into their system. We will send letters this week, copies will go straight to you. In the weeks after that, he tried new angles from new numbers. Sometimes an unknown caller would leave a bitter voicemail. I started saving them in one folder, not sure why yet. They ranged from pleading to furious, depending on the day. One message sticks with me more than the others. You made me lose her too, you know that, right? His voice cracked in the middle of the sentence, then hardened again. If I go under now, that is on you. I listened to that one twice, then replayed my mother's note. She had written that she trusted me to make careful choices. Not comfortable ones, not nice ones, careful ones. The contrast between their voices nearly knocked me sideways. That was the day I called a therapist and booked a first session. I used part of the policy funds without asking anyone's opinion. I told the receptionist I needed help with grief and betrayal. Saying both words in the same breath felt like swallowing glass. I also moved a portion of the money into a separate account. No shared access, no linked cards he could talk me into lending. Every step felt small and technical, but it was me choosing myself. I kept a printout of the balance in the same folder as her letter. Do I miss him? Yeah, I would be lying if I pretended otherwise. There are moments I pick up my phone out of habit. Some stupid meme pops up and I think he would laugh at it. Then I remember the hotel timestamp and my hand pulls back. The house is still in limbo while I record this. No for sale sign on the lawn yet, no clean ending. Sometimes that frustrates me, sometimes it feels like protection. A physical reminder that I do not have to rush his version of closure. As for him, last I heard, he is staying with a friend. I got that through a cousin, not from his own mouth. Apparently he tells people I turned my back on family during tragedy. He leaves out the part where he double-booked his grief. I know how cold I might sound telling it this way. Trust me, nothing about this feels victorious on my end. I cry over the voicemail where my mother tells me she is proud. I do not shed anything for the man who chose a weekend away that night. So here is where I am now. One parent in a cemetery, one somewhere in this same state. One voice I replay when I need strength, one number still blocked. And a locked door that stays shut until he wants truth more than comfort.